Welcome. This is the Drupal usability meeting for August 5th, 2022. I am Benji Fisher moderating, and also present are Ralph Kohler, who's sharing his screen and will start us off, Aaron McHale, Simo Helston, and Thomas Howell. Ralph, go ahead.
The first issue for today is number 3294914, create dedicated error section for missing removed core modules on update. The current suggestion in the issue was a bit bigger, that one, and oops, can't make it smaller, then let's do it that way. And the current state we had in our discussion is the following. The previous state was on module, you have a Drupal 9 site, a user who hasn't taken any consideration about update warnings and recommendation towards Drupal 10 and with deprecation. And after updating to Drupal 10 and updating then the database, that is the screen a user runs into and the requirements problem. In the issue, it is called the error found was named removed core modules in the suggestion, and the following modules are marked as installed in the core extension configuration, but they're removed from core aggregator and HAL. Review the suggestions for resolving this incompatibility to repair your installation and then rerun update PHP. We've discussed it 2 weeks ago, as Benji said, and we came up, the current state was you must install the following contributed modules before you complete this database update. Aggregator, HAL. These modules are enabled on your site and are no longer provided by core. Review the link text and enter the link text there and then return to this page. A brief thought.
Just
yep.
Pause for a second.
Okay.
Any questions? Do people understand where we are? Remember the discussion from 2 weeks ago? If anyone is trying to raise a question, you forgot to unmute yourself.
I think that's all very clear. I wasn't present for that discussion, but that all looks good so far.
Okay, good. Go ahead, Ralph.
2 small suggestions from my end. For the first sentence, you must install the following contributed modules before you complete this database update. I wonder if it would make sense to rephrase it a little bit and say you must install the following contributed modules before you complete this before you are able to complete this database update. Because in the last iteration we had, it sounds, at least for me as a non-native speaker, that it might be possible, or it's a bit disconnected. And I mean, with the rephrasing, at least for me, it sounds more like it's a follow-up, meaning you have to first install the following contributed modules, then you're able to complete the database. So the causality isn't that clear from my understanding.
I'm putting a few alternatives into the chat. So we currently have before you complete this, and you're suggesting before you are able to complete this. And I guess another alternative is in order to complete this.
Yeah.
So the general rule is that less is more. So I don't really like adding 3 extra words. You are able to. On the other hand, I appreciate the input from someone who's not a native English speaker, that we do want to make this as clear as possible. Other opinions?
Yeah, I think there's. Sorry, you go ahead.
Yeah, I like the shorter text, but then I started thinking that is it obvious that this is a showstopper for updating? So it's kind of a before like complete this database update. So before you can complete the update as a whole. But it's kind of I think it should be obvious that we can't continue the installation or continue the update before this is fixed. But this is not the place where to write that information. I'm just not seeing it on the like errors found, and then it's kind of a
Right. So I think in context, it is clear that you can't go on from here. Like there
Yeah.
won't be any continue button. It says requirements problem at the top of the page.
yes.
Aaron, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I think it was already covered though, so it's fine.
Yeah. Now that you pointed out that it's a requirements problem and it's in the phase of verify requirements, then it's kind of a I think maybe we shouldn't say complete. We that you can't even start before you install those modules. So it didn't start yet, so you can't complete it.
Okay, so before you perform, in order to update the database, before you continue, before you can update the database.
Yeah, I'd say that before you can run the database updates, because it says run updates there, but
Is the word database necessary? I guess I'm thinking like if you come to the updates page, like it feels like we've already covered like you're doing probably going to be doing a database update. I mean, you might come here instinctively, after you do an update, you come to the updates page to check. So like there might not even be I'm assuming you could get to this without there even being a database update to do, just informing you that this is this problem that you need to need to address. So I wonder if if it's not necessary to have the word database there.
Yeah, for context, this is the page update.php. So you're definitely trying to run database updates, but I agree that we don't necessarily have to have the word database in there. And I like the idea of using the same text that's in that left column of steps. So run updates. I've typed a couple of alternatives into the chat. Ralph, do you think you could copy those and paste them into your editor window? So we can see them.
Yeah, and just to add to that as well, I think like updates, whilst 90% of the time are database updates, they don't strictly have to be updating the database. They can do other things, although that's, you know, the most common case. The other example would be, you know, doing it, forcing a cache clear, for example.
Are these all terrible, or are any of them acceptable? Do you actually like any of them? We need some opinions here.
I like the idea with the before running updates, or before you can run updates. More before running updates is briefer and to the point. It also picks up the run terminology.
Okay, so you like the last two. I think I agree. Anyone else?
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, I think that before running update, it has the least number of words even.
Yeah, I would also go with the second last one, before running updates. I think it's to the point and concise.
Okay, great. That's a consensus.
Yeah,
Yay.
I also agree.
Yay.
Okay, then. And the other small detail I've noticed, in the last sentence, these modules are enabled on your site and you are no longer provided by core, wasn't enabled removed from the interface copy, basically on the modules page, and for example also on themes, because you get the add button for adding or installing a theme and the install button for installing or enabling a module or theme. So I'm not sure if going with enabled is the right thing, or if you should use install.
Personally, I like enabled. Not just, but that's kind of because I've been using Drupal for quite some time. But for me, it's kind of installing it sometimes confusing, because if it's in Composer, but not in the Drupal core extensions, so it's kind of a which way of installing. So I like enabled because for me it's more precise.
I think my first consideration would be, let's be consistent with what we do already. I have a vague memory of, I don't know if you just mentioned it, Ralph, of an issue to investigate the best terminology, but I think whether that exists right now or whether it might exist in the future, I think whatever we're doing, whatever terminology we're saying in other parts of the UI, we should be using here. So if we say, you know, on the module screen, let's say we say install a module, I think we should use install here for, you know, consistency. And then if we decide we want to review that, then we should open a separate issue. But at the moment, I think we should value consistency.
Yeah, and I just spun up a local Drupal site and looked at admin modules, and the button at the very bottom of the page says install. So I think Aaron is right about that. So instead of enabled, we should use installed. I agree. Any other opinions on that word choice? Aaron, go ahead.
Yeah, so if assuming we're all in agreement about that, something that's I'm also wondering is, should the line, or should the sentence review the link text, etc. I'm wondering if that would look better on a separate line. And it also, just because of the way you're probably scanning down the left side of the screen, so we're indicating there's an action there to do, so it might be clearer to the user if we keep that as close to the left hand side as possible, so that it's not in line with a more text, if you see what I mean.
And let's see, Simo mentions in the chat that Drupal 9.4 has extend. Go ahead.
Yeah, so in the, I think I have 9.4 there. It has in the menu extend it has a description, add and enable modules to extend site functionality. So that's something that if there is somewhere else we have installed, so at least there is some. It's another issue that in one place we are talking about enabling, and then in other place installing.
So I think what you're referring to is the menu item, and the text you get on hover is add and enable, what you've copied into the chat.
Yeah, and also when you just go to the extend menu, click that when it lists the options.
Where to click?
Let me find that.
But note the tabs up there: list, update, and uninstall.
Oh yeah, just like the path, like the just admin path, like the admin main page.
Oh, but no one ever goes to the admin main page.
Yeah, this is because I have a very blank installation where I don't even have that toolbars or that admin toolbar. So here, this one.
Okay. And if you install a module, sometimes it's also enable used. Module X is successfully enabled. It's still a bit inconsistent across. And I agree with Simo, enable is more clear if you have, for example, these modules are enabled on your site and are no longer provided by core. But if you have these modules are installed on your site and are no longer provided by core, it sounds also confusing, but it would be more consistent to install with the rest. It's
Also
it's complicated.
Also, if we read the whole thing, you must install the following contributed modules. These modules are installed on your site, so you must install because these are already installed.
Right, that would be bad. We might also change install in the first line, change that to add. I think we're trying to move in that direction.
And if we want to be a bit more technical, like precise in technical manner, we could use a bit longer version. These modules are enabled on your site configuration, but that's maybe it's not useful to have that, but it would be more precise because it's in the configuration.
Right.
So,
and I see Offer has just joined us. Welcome.
So for me, if I had this kind of error message, for me, the solution would be just to go take a text editor and maybe edit that core extensions YML. So I would solve it by editing the configuration, not putting the modules there. Maybe depends on which modules, but.
Right. I'd like to keep the text short. I also don't think
Yeah.
that's the solution we want to recommend at this point to this audience.
Yeah. No, we don't.
So I was just looking up, I surfaced a couple of issues around the last one actually is probably more relevant. Is a meta issue around kind of the wording on the modules and its theme kind of add, install, update, trying to it's from several years back, but there's a lot of text there, and it's around kind of looking at different issues and how they can I guess standardize wording and consistency. So yeah, there seems to be potentially an effort there that we could look at.
Yeah, Ralph, could you open up that last link?
Yeah, I already have.
Chat? Oh,
it's issue number 288657. Meta, less confusing and more consistent wording needed in module theme, add, install, update.
right. So if I remember correctly, this suggests using add for using either Composer or Tarball to get it into the code base, and then install rather than enable. So that's why I suggested using add on the first line and install in the later line. I think that's consistent with the recommendations of that issue.
Yeah, also like technically these modules are already installed on the site. You just need to add the contributing module versions. So actually in the first line, add makes more sense because you don't actually have to install and just have to add them back to your site.
And also the modules, if they were added before, they did probably run module.install, so that kind of there is also reference to install on the technical side, so kind of they run some kind of install script, so that's kind of enabling does installing.
So should it be installed for now to be consistent? For these modules are installed on your site and are no longer provided by core.
I think that's what we want. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, installed seems to be, even if there's not consistency right now, installed seems to be the more widely used word in the UI. So yeah, I'd go with that as well.
How about the word core? Is that at all clear in context? We know we can't use Drupal because it might be some other installation profile that doesn't mention Drupal.
I heard that, I think, last week, and I did not understand that.
We actually could we could do it as a placeholder. So because for instance, if you're using a distribution in the installer, it changes the whatever it does. I don't know exactly what it does, but it swaps out Drupal for the name of the distribution. So we could, and actually that's probably more relatable than the word core. For instance, if you just got a regular Drupal site, are no longer provided by, well, maybe it would be Drupal core. Say you just don't have it open social and no longer provided by open social. Now that I say it, I don't really like it.
Are we going to expose a secret that it's actually Drupal?
Oh, I don't think we could do that.
They'll soon have a browser, a project browser, and that's it.
I think if we would use kind of a distribution name, then we probably should use the no longer included in. because if they are provided by Drupal core, but then they are not included in a distribution.
Right.
No longer provided, no longer included, or have been removed. I think the original text said they are removed from core.
Do you
Yes.
mind copy paste that into the chat? That sentence.
Which?
Yeah, that one.
That one? Okay.
Thank you. Being lazy here. Thanks.
Or how about okay, so my thinking with this is that you've just performed an update. So the action you were doing was updating. Doesn't, you know, you're updating Drupal, you're updating Open Social, whatever. You've been updating. So maybe update, you know, or no, maybe something like are no longer provided in this update or something like that.
Hmm.
And that kind of avoids the whole dilemma of what name do we put here?
Well, when we go to the modules page, core is name of one of the sections, so it's kind of it's there.
That's true. So do we capitalize the C in core?
Like,
Yeah, it's actually capital. It's actually a capital C on the modules list.
Well, but that's because it's a column header.
Yeah.
I put something into the chat based on Aaron's suggestion. They are removed in this update.
I like that. Because I think it ties it back to the action that you're currently doing, which is like you know, or have just done, which is updating. So you kind of expect there to be some changes in an update. I think if we do that, we just have to be really explicit about what the next step is. So like, I definitely think we need to propose what the link text is as well.
I actually like to have that core. If even if we have say they are removed, then I think they are removed from core, because it's kind of that core contributed. There's kind of a division. So when we say that you need to add something that was removed, so it's kind of feels strange.
Yeah, because the other thing to consider is they're not, whilst they are removed from core, they've technically been moved to somewhere else, that being contrib. So removed might inadvertently imply that they're completely gone, which is not strictly the case.
How about are no longer part of core, are no longer included in core?
are no longer part of core. Sounds good. Or one slide.
That's just what I was about to suggest. And any one of
Ah.
these options we could replace and with but.
I really like the provided version because I feel it kind of it has also like the support part in it somehow.
I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Like when core provides something, it come with, you know, and the update's gonna come, everything is there. And I feel no longer part of core, it's more like, what does it mean? You know, it's less, because it could be provided by a by a contrib module instead. And if we just finish the sentence with no longer part of core, it feels like there's more unknown than, I don't know, somehow provided by core is less. Does that make sense? Like people might see this message and know, like, you know, what happened with it, or why wasn't it, like, was it not secured? Was it not?
I think I understand what you mean, and I think I agree with you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm happy to stick with that first version provided by core. Any other opinions, Simo, Thomas?
I like the first one.
Okay,
And I don't have a strong opinion.
so let's stick with that. Should we change and to but?
And we said this, it might be that a module does not have a contrib available, right? That's where we don't talk about that option.
I believe that all the modules being removed in Drupal 10 have contributed versions. They don't yet have releases, but I'm pretty confident that they will by the time Drupal 10 is released.
Yes.
And I mentioned that in my comment on the issue a week or two ago, that, you know, possibly when we get to Drupal 11, the situation will change. But if it does, we should deal with it then. Right now, we should focus on Drupal 10. Okay, can we finally work on the link text?
Yeah, could you, Ralph, could you maybe copy what the actual text is right now into there
One
so that
second.
I can.
Right, so this is the documentation page we'll be linking to.
So my first thought about this is that the current, that sentence seems a bit like non-committal in that, well, there's some recommendations over here, but you know, we're not going to tell you for sure that these modules are actually here. So maybe we need something a bit stronger that so that, you know, if we're confident that all these modules, well, they are available in Contrib, could we you know, when we link to this page or in that sentence, maybe we could be clearer about that you can go here to get these modules, or
So I think when we list the modules, we're making those links to the project pages. So
okay.
So the review link is basically for some background information, but the call to action is in the first sentence that you must add the following contributed modules, and then the list of modules in question that need action.
Oh, I
So
see.
the
Okay.
action already happened.
Sure. Okay. So this is effectively like an optional step at the end for someone who wants more background information, then?
yes, this.
Okay.
Although you only get to this point if you have not read the documentation at all until this point. But if you finally changed your mind and decided that you want to read the instructions before going further, this is the link we're giving you.
Are you implying that people read the documentation before they go ahead and do something?
No, I'm just saying that the people who reach this page have not.
Right.
If that's true, then rather than words like review and return, would it make more sense to say, if you encounter problems, read recommendations for deprecated modules? That at least is more accurate.
Right, or instead of, I agree, we should not be instructing them to review first. We should be encouraging them to use the links that we're giving them in the list. And I would even suggest something more generic, like for more information.
Yep,
Yeah, I was thinking that too.
or additional information available, or additional recommendations available here.
For more information.
Yeah, sorry.
So something like, for more information, see recommendations for deprecated modules documentation. What did we decide? I feel like we had this discussion like last week about, do we use the word documentation?
I think you're right.
So I have an opinion, and feel free to yell at me about it. I'm not sure I like having the full title of the page, recommendations for deprecated modules, because there's nothing that stops folks on D.O from changing the title of that page.
That's true.
And I wouldn't put it in the code base personally. and it could just be for more information, read the documentation. Documentation is the link to recommendations for deprecated modules.
I like it.
So yeah, this is kind of a similar thing last week because I brought up that like we need link text to at least be descriptive of what link is, so that like if you're using a assistive technology and tabbing around, you get the context of, it's not just a link that says documentation and there's no context. So we can I'm not sure if we need to be so worried about if the text is going to change, as long as the link text makes sense in the context that you're currently in.
We could call it deprecated module documentation, make it something, what would be appropriate, but something like, it's just, to my eyes, it's very awkward to have the capital R, like the whole title, the way it's written. I think we
Yeah.
can be more descriptive and shorter.
Yeah.
Do you have a suggestion? Like, is it read the deprecation documentation, read the module deprecation documentation?
I'm struggling to come up with one, but mostly because there's a lot of words there that have a lot of syllables in them. So I'm trying to think of like a way of expressing it that's like doesn't feel like I'm tripping over my tongue as I say it.
And maybe also, since this documentation page is not specifically focused on the upgrade process, maybe we should make it clear that this is information about the modules, not information about what to do in this situation. So maybe the link text should be something like documentation on core modules. And Ralph, for the purposes of this little document, maybe it's easiest to use markdown syntax. So put the link text in brackets. Yeah.
Maybe like documentation on deprecated core modules, because it's more specific than just core modules.
It doesn't say anything about core on this page.
Oh, you're right.
If you look in the breadcrumbs, this is a child of core modules and themes.
Okay.
But we
And
could, the link text doesn't need to say core. It would just be documentation on deprecated modules.
Okay.
yeah, that's my suggestion. And I see what you're saying, Benji, but the
It's also in the right sidebar on the table of contents.
I wouldn't notice it looking at the titles and reading down along the left.
Okay.
And nobody looks at the right sidebar. That's not a joke. There's research backing that up.
Okay. I will take that advice seriously then.
It's also kind of a joke though.
Okay. I'm happy with that last line. Other opinions?
There's only one slight problem. In the last iteration, we had these modules are installed on your site, but are no longer provided by core. Review the link text and then return to this page. And the part about return to this page, that is missing right now. And it would be inappropriate in the context of, for more information, read the documentation and on deprecated modules.
Is it about going back to this page, or it's about when I actually read the documentation, understand the process better, and then I'll update my site again?
Yeah, they go back and return to this page, and reload is basically the call to action that after those steps are finished, that page has to be revisited and reloaded, and then it could go if the module
I just didn't know.
is.
I didn't know if the update has multiple stages and this is the first page or this is in the middle of the process.
It's the first. It's the
first one.
verify
Okay.
requirements step.
Okay.
This is kind of similar to what we were saying earlier, though, that like the call to action is actually the links that you above for each of the modules in the list. This is more just, here's some additional reading. If you want it, you don't need to read this. So I don't. Sorry, go ahead.
How about replacing in the first line, replace before running updates, then return to this page? You must add the following contributed modules and then return to this page.
Yes.
And then return that way.
Yeah.
I like that a lot better. I'm not a fan of the wording running updates.
Okay.
How did the person arrive on the updates page? Anyways.
There are links from the modules page.
And maybe from the status report.
Yeah.
Or an error, or maybe they just need to come here because it's, well, if you get into the habit of going here after running updates.
This may be nitpicky, but on the sentence, these modules are installed on your site but no longer provided by core. Could we say something like the listed modules? Or is, like, I was having trouble going from the first sentence now that we've added the and then return to this page. It wasn't reading right to me, and I don't know if my brain isn't working.
Here's something else that just popped into my memory. On it's one of the steps in the installer, and maybe this is the case on this page as well, but there's a link at the bottom of the verifying requirements page that's like, it's just a refresh link. So once you've done those things, you can click the link and it will refresh the page. I wonder if we should provide something similar here. Maybe not necessarily at the bottom, but in that, you know, in that top bit or below the list.
That seems like it's out of scope for the current discussion.
Testing of the fire alarm system.
So Thomas suggests changing these modules to the listed modules. I didn't hear any comments on that. I prefer the shorter, but
Yeah, leave it at the shorter. I was just trying to get around the fact that we say modules, and it just feels really awkward. And I just was trying to change that, but I'd rather us just get this done. These modules is fine, so scrap my words, I think.
okay.
So for nitpicking, is there a problem when it says module in a singular, or Drupal already takes care of that?
I guess with a little work, we could we could have alternatives based on whether there's one or more in the list. So this module or these modules.
Yeah, an E's and R. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's worth doing if it's not hard to do. It shouldn't be too hard to do.
I think there is some kind of mechanism in Drupal to
Oh yeah,
differentiate between the two.
yeah, there definitely is. And you just have to put in the count of the list which is available here. Should we have some punctuation at the end of the first sentence, either a colon or a period?
Yes. I would put a period because if we were, I would put a colon if we were just finishing the sentence with you must add the following contributing modules, colon, but we've got an extra bit there, so personally I would end it with a period.
Okay, I can go with that. Do we have to mention that when you return to the page, you should reload? I guess that gets back to the question that I said was out of scope with whether there's a refresh link at the bottom.
Yeah, but in the initial text, it was called and then rerun update PHP. So that the page has to be reloaded or the script rerun. And that way it would be explicit in the first line what the steps are necessary to get the update running properly. Because otherwise, if you just write, you must add the following contributed modules and then return to this page, the person goes just back in the browser and it is not reloaded necessarily.
So maybe just reload this page rather than return to this page.
Yes. Like I can say my workflow, Ralph, would not be to click on that button and replace this page. I would actually pop open a new screen personally. And so the language isn't, there is no returning to this page. It's going outside the site. And the action that you're calling for is reload.
That one?
Yeah, I would go with that.
Okay,
That looks good.
And we're just about out of time, so I declare this finished.
Yes.
Oh my, wordsmithing is hard, isn't it?
I
The
have a
phrase
bite.
wordsmithing is sort of deprecated. But
I have a bike that needs a shed.
Wow, that's haven't heard that one before.
Okay, so feel free to discuss further in Slack or on the issue, but we are out of time and I do want to respect people's schedules. So Ralph, please copy that to the issue and say that this is our current recommendation. And
Okay.
So just to clarify as well, because we've got a number of variations going on at the bottom as well, which is the one we were recommending for the last sentence?
I think what Ralph has near the top for more
Oh,
information.
is that? Okay.
Oops.
Okay,
And
perfect.
should it be a separate line, or should we make it that way?
I was a fan of a separate line, I think I was suggested. And also you need a period at the end of the sentence.
Oh, yeah, indeed. That way. So an empty line that way.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And just for clarification, the name of the module should be a link to the project page.
Right. And the module name should be capitalized.
Okay. That was my laziness just.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe use the markdown syntax again, so put like the square brackets around it,
Oh, yeah.
just so we're super clear.
Wouldn't Markdown use a pipe after aggregator? So it'd be like aggregator pipe and then link to project page.
No, because the aggregator is the link, so it's square brackets, then it actually there's technically not a space there. So for want to be really pedantic, that's it. Yeah, we would get rid of the space. That's the format.
Okay.
Yeah, there are variants of Markdown, and there's that horrible stuff that Jira uses that has the link text, a pipe, and then the link all in square brackets. But
Oh,
I think the more common Markdown syntax is what we have here.
Let's go with
yeah,
this.
I'm not an expert on markdown variations.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. Good.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Yeah,
See
thank you.
you next week.
And enjoy Colorado. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Oh, and I won't be here next week actually because I have a something else on. I'm at an event, but I'll put it in chat because everyone else is left now. But
Everyone is already left.
yes. Okay. See you later, Ralph.
Bye-bye. Have a nice weekend.
You too.